So today we're going to kick off a 3-part series where we're going to power rank the teams in each region. Today we're going to start with EMEA, and then we'll do Pacific and Americas in the coming days, as well as the season is drawing ever closer. I mean, China is starting tomorrow, but then the others start a week later. So let's dive in, and here is my list from before kickoff. So this is what I had as my list before kickoff. Now, to start off with, we're going to go through this list, right? And see how wrong was I, looking at this versus what actually happened. And there are some notable, they probably shouldn't be number 1. And, this team's in 7. And this team's in 8. And maybe there's a couple misses in there. But, the bottom doesn't look too bad. Some of the middle doesn't look too bad. I would give this like a 6 out of 10, right? It's not awful. But there definitely are some pretty big misses. But I'm sure if most people did this before kickoff began, there would also be some pretty big misses. So let's go about fixing the list then. And we'll start, I think, at the bottom, which, as I say, I think the bottom 4 here is the correct 4 teams. The order might not be perfect. So this is Koi in 11th, Apex in 12, Mates in 10, Navi in 9. I think that these probably are the bottom 2. I think most people would agree with that. I think during kickoff, Gentlemates showed a little bit more than Navi, and so I am willing to swap these two. But I think in general, these 4 teams, I think most people would have these 4 teams as their bottom 4 in EMEA, and I think that it just makes sense that these are the bottom 4 teams. Now, moving up the list, this is where it actually gets more difficult, right? This number 8 spot, because when you look at like the list of teams here from like 4 to 8, you look at it and it would feel harsh to put BBL there. Obviously, we kind of can't put Team Liquid there. Karmine Corp, it might feel harsh to put them there. Giants, it might feel harsh to put them there. And Fnatic, you don't really want to put there either, right? And then, these 3 also, I would say you don't want to put them in 8th. So 8th is like a really tough spot here in EMEA, where you're probably looking at like these 5 teams, but there isn't, I think, a clear definitive answer, because Karmine Corp showed quite a bit of promise, for instance, in their game versus Vitality, but then they did also lose to Giants, right? So it would feel harsh to put Giants below. BBL and Liquid were kind of the 2 overperformers in kickoff, so it would definitely feel wrong to put them in 8th position. Am I really going to put Fnatic in 8th position? Like, it is quite tough here. I think I am between Karmine Corp and Giants. And I think... See, this is where it gets so tough, because I was pretty close on these 2 teams before the season begun as well. Giants did beat Karmine Corp. So I suppose I have to kind of squint and put Karmine Corp in 8th. But I might undo that. And I'm going to keep these 2 right next to each other, because I think that these 2 are there. Now, again, I would like to say that I think that there is a tier gap here, right? There is a tier gap. And in fact, I'm going to go against what I just said. I have more hope for Karmine Corp than I do Giants now. Having seen Giants play, they were okay, but I have more faith in Karmine Corp, even though Giants beat them. Maybe I'll come to live to regret that. I don't know, but I'm going to go for this. Now, moving up the list, again, we come into this kind of dilemma with these guys, and we could probably start, talking about some of these other teams as well. Maybe not so much Vitality. I think they're going to probably end up there, but we can now start talking about like who deserves to end up in 6th position, right? And again, we probably end up in the same area, where I would say out of these teams, and Team Heretics are a big kind of, what the hell do you do with Team Heretics, right? In fact, let's spend a bit of time talking about them, because of course it is Team Heretics. They are the same team that, went to 2 finals last year. It's the same players, it's the same coaching staff. They came out in kickoff. It was a little shaky. Then they kind of, seemed to get their footing a bit, and then they fell off an absolute cliff. Now, Abyss is gone, and Abyss was a big problem for Team Heretics, right? And that map is now gone. So that should help them, I would say, fairly significantly. I also think that they just ran into Team Liquid playing in like their best form, right? And we saw that at the start of the Vitality game as well, right? The Team Liquid came out and also destroyed Vitality on those first couple maps. And that's the Heretics that Team Liquid, ran into. And that's unfortunate that they were playing kind of at their worst, and Team Liquid were playing at their very best. And so you ended up with a very lopsided score. I still have some hope in Team Heretics, though. I still have some faith overall. I still am a believer that they will turn it around and be pretty good. Will they necessarily be, making it deep in tournaments? That we'll have to see. But in terms of just like EMEA, I still think they'll be one of the better teams. It is possible that they completely fall off a cliff. That is not out of the question, and then maybe they do deserve to be something like 8th, right? That happens sometimes, and maybe it will happen to this team. But for now, I don't think it will, and I'm still willing to give them a little bit of bail. So in this 6th position, I think it's probably most likely between BBL and Fnatic for the next 2 spots. It's what order do you go for them in, right? And again, BBL beat Fnatic. And so, again, you would say, okay, well, therefore, you would say that BBL probably deserve to be ahead of Fnatic. Again, if you were going to put Fnatic ahead of BBL, it would be, primarily based upon, the history of Fnatic, essentially, right? And looking at like, oh, Althea's really good, and oh, Chronicle's a good player, I've heard. So, that's why you would rate Fnatic over BBL. However, I do think that BBL, like, having looked at some of their, having watched them play, and obviously they came in with some unknowns, right? Like, I wasn't too familiar with Loon or Sociable, right? Like, how good are they going to be in a tier 1 level? Well, they're very good, right? They look like very good pickups. I know Chiwa from Ascend, if he comes and plays in for VAC, I think he'll be pretty good as well. I thought Yampy, some of the calling was actually, way better. Another question mark for BBL, and on some of the maps, Yampy, his calling was really, really good. So I think just based off what I've seen, I can't disrespect BBL that much, and I have to put Fnatic in 6 and BBL in 5, because not only did they beat Fnatic, but they also consistently look like the better team over Fnatic as well. So for that reason, I have to put BBL in 5, and then these are my top 4. And again, this isn't easy necessarily, because Team Heretics and Team Liquid, you could say, right? Like, how much are you rating Team Liquid? It is tough. I think for now, we might as well just kind of, get this out of the way. I think Vitality obviously have to go to number 1. I don't think many people would disagree with that. I think that that's just obvious. But again, we end up with kind of 3 teams here that really could go in any order, right? This you could probably argue for any order, right? You could just go on results and go, Liquid in 2. You could say Liquid were a bit fluky, they won't, I don't trust them yet to do that again. Put them in 4, right? You trust kind of the history more with Team Heretics. Maybe put them in 2nd, right? And 4th and 3rd. Like, there are different ways that you could order this, and I think it is pretty tough. And it probably does come down to somewhat like, how much do you think Liquid's run was, about them waking up and really going for it? I do think that Team Liquid didn't disgrace themselves, though, at Masters Bangkok, right? They did win a game. They also had a pretty tough draw, right? You got EDG and G2 as the 2 games that they lost. I don't think there's any, like, major problem in losing those games. I would have liked if Team Liquid maybe showed a little bit more, right? Could they have won a map in some of those games? Like, that might have been a bit better. I might have felt a bit better about them. But I don't think that they disgraced themselves. And therefore, I think I do have to put them in number 2. For that reason. Which, again, I mean, as a Liquid, I'm not a Liquid hater, but I haven't been their biggest fan over the past couple of years. But, it does feel a bit strange to be putting Liquid up here at number 2. But I think that they do probably deserve it, based off what we saw in Kickoff, and even some of the things that we saw in Masters Bangkok as well. So, with that said, we now come to the decision of who should be 3rd and who should be 4th. And again, it really does come down to how much do you trust Heretics. But again, I personally think there is a good chance that Heretics will bounce back and be a good team and, will fulfill that. However, there is maybe a, 20% chance that they really do struggle, right? That maybe they have lost whatever they had, and, their confidence is a bit lower, and all that kind of stuff. So for that reason, because even though I do trust them to mostly come back, there is still a chance that they're actually going to end up lower on this list by the time I do it next time in, like, a couple weeks, whenever that is. So I will put the foot into 3rd, and I'll go Heretics 4. And I think that this is my new EMEA power ranking. I haven't done anything too crazy. I don't think it does feel harsh on Giants. If you're a Giants fan, hello. You're a rare one in the wild to spot on this video. But, I am gonna, it does feel harsh putting them in 8th because, as I say, there probably is a tier gap here overall. Also, I think that Navi and Mates, could rise up this as well, potentially with a couple good performances. But yeah, this is my EMEA power ranking for now. Let me know what you think in the comments down below.